So big picture with nutrition is that people need to have quality in their food and be eating in the right quantities to reach their goals, right? So, if someone's goal is weight loss at the end of the day, they have to get that quantity figure in the right amounts. If your goal is more health, the quality aspect becomes important, but they're not totally separate. They interplay with each other. The quality of food you're eating is going to affect quantity, and the total quantity is also going to affect your health. And one of the things that I'm always thinking with CrossFit Spring Hill is this help first mentality. How can we help our members best reach their goals? How can we help them be as fit as possible, as healthy as possible, for as long as possible? And nutrition really has to be the foundation of that, right? So we've tried some different things with challenges at CrossFit Spring Hill. We've done like the 800-gram challenge, which was to eat fruits and veggies, and we've done some habit-based stuff. And all that stuff is really just different ways to get at these two goals of quality and quantity. So let's talk about like the habit-based approach. Maybe you could speak to that, Abby, like the habit-based approach, kind of like we did with the 2% challenge, and kind of the philosophy behind that and how that can help someone ultimately reach their goals, whether it be weight loss, just lifestyle change, health, gaining muscle, that kind of stuff, and how that plays in.
I think there's a lot around behavior change when it comes to trying to do too much at one time. And so the idea of like the habit-based model is to try to take one focus and help somebody get relatively consistent with that one area, whether that's with water or whether it's with protein or whatever it is, but it's sort of laser focus on one thing, then stack a secondary habit on top of that. It can be really helpful for people who struggle with overwhelm is to just sort of use that model of one habit at a time, with the idea that you're stacking additional habits on top of that, where eventually you build sort of an infrastructure of healthy, consistent habits, but you've done it in an organized way so you don't overwhelm yourself.
Yeah, cool. And so we really worked on that, like with the 2% challenge. We built all these habits over 6 weeks, and a lot of times, I don't. Correct me if I'm wrong, but when you work with clients one-on-one, do you typically start with that habit-based approach, or more weighing and measuring, or does it depend?
Yeah, it depends on the client to some degree. I mean, for everybody, we always do sort of a baseline assessment of like how much you're currently eating, and then from there, trying to decide, okay, what's the first thing that we're going to work on? So that's really then where that one habit at a time might be focused on. So if they do an initial, 2-week entry of tracking what they eat, and they see, okay, wow, I'm really under eating protein. Protein might be the first habit then that we focus on. And so we sort of let the data inform, but typically in my one-on-ones, it's more of the habit-based model.
Yeah.
The thing that I like the most about habit-based is the sustainability aspect of it, because like you said, the clients don't get overwhelmed, but also they're able to build habits, and not every habit that I recommend may stick, or they may not enjoy doing, or they may not find benefit in it. But what I hope is that they leave with some good habits that they can then kind of refine as they go, and really make just part of their lifestyle, so that the sustainability piece is there.
Yeah, because ultimately, like we've probably all done it. We've seen people do like these crash diets, or more of a I'm just going to do this diet to lose some weight approach, and then I don't know, what's the percentage, Abby, as far as how often the weight comes back? I mean, it's over 90%.
I was going to say over 90%.
Yeah, and so really our philosophy with nutrition coaching, is we're trying to help people build these habits for life.
Yeah,
like you're saying, so it just becomes part of how you live, and
And I'm fine with people like kind of dialing in for a period of time, especially if they, maybe to kickstart just some motivation or discipline for them to build some habits, or maybe they have an event coming up, a wedding, a weekend at the beach. I don't know. I don't care, as long as they're motivated to make a change, and hopefully they can build some habits along the way that are sustainable, even if they don't stick to that plan per se for a long term.
Yeah. So, which brings us to what we're doing for this next group nutrition challenge. which is the Spring Sculpt Challenge, where we are weighing and measuring. And part of this was something that, as I was thinking through some of the challenges we've done before, habit-based stuff with the 2% challenge, quality-based, where we're with the 800-gram challenge, really just trying to get lots of fruits and vegetables, is this idea that, we're heading into summer, so there's just that reality of people, wanting to look good in a bathing suit and all that kind of stuff. So, let's lean into that a little bit of, sculpting down and using weighing and measuring to really dial that in. And we've talked about this, like, it isn't weighing and measuring your food, tracking everything isn't necessarily something that we would even recommend doing for a super long time.
Not at all.
But it can be a really helpful tool
Yeah.
to dial some things in.
I think people have, I often laugh and say a lot of times we eat as like floating heads. So we're sort of like detached from the process. And so, you may ask somebody, do you think like you overeat or undereat? And people will say like, no, I think I eat pretty well, or I think I eat pretty clean, as a description that gets thrown around a lot. And then the forced awareness that weighing and measuring introduces is, it can't be out of sight, out of mind. Like, I have to be accountable and aware that this is actually what went in my body today, and I can't just sort of have this flippant, like, I think I'm okay, I think I'm doing all right. Again, once you maybe hit a goal or you're focused on maintenance, that approach can work to some degree. But I think when you really are trying to work toward a goal, or you have something specific in mind, aesthetic goal, whatever it might be, this is sort of a tool that you can't bypass. Like, it is sort of a necessary tool to utilize if you want the best results.
Yeah, it's great to use as a tool just to get a snapshot of what you're currently eating. I've talked to a lot of people who, want to gain muscle, and so they want to eat more protein, eat more carbs and calories overall, and they think that they're eating a lot, and they might eat one big meal a day or even 2 big meals a day, but the reality is they're not getting in the amount of calories that they need. Otherwise, the results would show, right? And that goes not only for a 24-hour period, but also 7 days a week, consistently for years, right?
Yeah.
And that's what this, it's a snapshot of what you're doing consistently for years, right? So we want to see some habits built and awareness so that we can, move that sustainability.
Yeah. And I always try to just tell people like the truth about what's going to work for them. And one of the things I've been trying to communicate with people more recently is that, like, if you look at people who you might look to and go, well, like, man, they're really dialed in, and like, someone you look to and you're like, well, that's goals or whatever. And just think about the people around the gym you might look at: Jon, Abby, Nicole, Ashley, whatever. I pretty much guarantee
Joe.
Any of those people, they haven't just done like a 30 or 60 or 90 day diet to get that way, or even a 1 year. I'm just going to dial things in for you. You guys have been doing it. We've been doing it. I've been doing it for 10 years of just consistent, and that's also what allows for that like elusive, moderation.
Yeah.
True.
It seems so frustrating to people because where it's like either this all in or not mentality.
Right.
Can you guys speak to that a little bit? Like, how do you get to that place of like, I'm pretty dialed in, but I can still have a beer and I can still have a glass of wine, so I have dessert, go out on the weekends, that kind of thing.
I think you use the tool to, again, learn what your baseline is. And then I always use this example of like liquid egg whites in a carton. So when I first started tracking, I would always have to weigh out the portion to know like the amount I was trying to get. Well, I've done it so long now, I actually like know the weight of, like when I pour it in a pan, like I know with a high degree of certainty, even when I'm not tracking, sometimes I'll still just see like how close was I, and like I'm within like 10 grams every time. Like I know what it feels like to pour 150 grams of egg whites in a pan because I've done it so often. And I think that's part of what it teaches you is like over time, your eyes do get more trained on this is what a serving size of protein is supposed to look like. This is what a moderate portion of carbs is supposed to look like. But I think when you haven't ever weighed and tracked or measured and like taught yourself that skill, it's, moderation is sort of this ever elusive target because you've never really laid the groundwork that you needed to like set yourself up for long-term success.
The 2% challenge is starting this week. We have the Spring Sculpt. And sometimes these names, like we try to come up with these clever names, but really what we're just trying to help people do is just different ways to attack building these habits, basically. And this is one of the ways to attack it. Spring Sculpt Challenge. Starting this Saturday with an in-person workshop where Abby, you're going to really go through like what are macros, how do you weigh and measure your food, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like using a digital food scale, you know, again, I always laugh and say, I don't expect members to walk around with a food scale in their purse or their car and taking it. I mean, you could. I'm not saying it's all right if you want to do that, but that's not, if you've never used one, learning how to actually use a food scale is really important so that you know portion sizes. So we're going to cover that. We're going to talk about, again, sort of basic macronutrients, like do you know definition, function, why they matter, and also talking about like setting your own macro profile, because I think that also is an area that people struggle with to understand, like, well, what should be my target? How can I kind of figure that out? And so we'll talk about some practical application of sort of laying the groundwork for the challenge so that they get some front end education.
Nice. And then throughout the challenge, so we're going to be setting and hitting just an overall caloric goal, and then we're going to hit a protein goal.
Yeah.
And for right now, we're not really even going to worry about carbs and fat. We're just going to let that play out how it will. But with that caloric goal and that protein goal, you're going to make a lot of strides towards your overall goal, whatever you want that to be. But like, can you speak to just maybe some of the things we'll be doing week to week, like to help people with like maybe tips to get more protein and stuff like that?
Yeah. So we'll kind of operate in like a social media forum where members can kind of bounce ideas of recipes off of each other, and Abby and I will be actively involved in coaching and just giving out tidbits of information.
So you're going to build some awareness. You're going to learn a lot about what you're eating, about how to set these goals, how to reach them, and get a lot of coaching and community support along the way. So we're looking forward to it. The workshop is this Saturday at 10 a.m. and then starting that next Monday, the 24th, and then for 5 weeks, you're focusing on these things and kind of ramping up how accurate we're trying to be and dialing in goals as we go. So it'll be good.
Yeah, and I think one thing, I think, expectations are always good to talk about when you go into a challenge. Again, we're not a gym that promotes this 30 days to get shredded kind of approach. And so I think realistically, thinking about goals for individuals that decide to do this, it's like, yes, you can lean down, you can lose some body fat. I mean, for most people who are doing this, I would say the majority of people are wanting to lean out. And so, but it's like being realistic of what would be possible within this time frame. And what we really want people to think about is this is setting that foundation. You're learning the skill and the tools that hopefully then you can continue to build on as you work toward maybe your long-term goals. But we want everybody to get some momentum coming out of the challenge. But again, this is not a, let's get ripped in 6 weeks kind of an approach.
Yep. And both these guys, gal, are available also after the challenge for, if you want to dial in your stuff more to help with that. Like, I really want to dial in my carbs and fat more or build some healthy habits around this so I don't have to weigh and measure forever. Sometimes that one-on-one attention and accountability, personalization is really helpful. So it's always an option after the challenge as well. Be helpful for some people.
Absolutely.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you guys for chatting about this, and looking forward to it.
Thanks.
Thanks, Joe.
All right.